Sentence to the memory of Ozzy Osbourne.
Phil Anselmo's tribute to the late Ozzy Osbourne takes a shocking turn. After honoring the Prince of Darkness, Anselmo turned the spotlight on Sharon Osbourne. He claims Sharon is facing financial ruin in the wake of her husband's death. Let's break down the truth behind this shocking revelation, the shocking financial reality behind Ozzy's death. To understand the magnitude of this crisis, we need to rewind to July 5th, 2025, when Ozzy took the stage for what would be his final performance. The Back to the Beginning farewell concert at Villa Park in Birmingham was supposed to be a triumphant send-off, a celebration of a career that had spanned over 5 decades. The event drew 42,000 fans and was streamed to over 3 million viewers worldwide, featuring an all-star lineup that read like a who's who of heavy metal royalty. Among those paying tribute was Phil Anselmo, whose band Pantera had been given their break by Ozzy himself. The connection between these two titans of metal ran deep. Pantera had been featured on multiple Ozfests, and their groove metal sound bore the unmistakable influence of Black Sabbath's pioneering work. When Anselmo took the stage that night, delivering a thunderous cover of Black Sabbath's Electric Funeral, he was doing more than just performing. He was paying homage to the man who had shaped his entire career.
Sentence to the memory of Ozzy Osbourne. And hey, when you cheer for us, I want to hear you cheer for Ozzy. Let's practice what Ozzy.
But beneath the surface of this emotional tribute, a financial storm was gathering that would soon devastate the Osbourne family. Ozzy's estate, valued at $220 million to $337 million, was supposed to provide security for his widow and 6 children, but the reality was far more complex and terrifying than anyone could have imagined. The first crack in the facade appeared just weeks after Ozzy's passing. While the family was still reeling from their loss, they were simultaneously grappling with a financial nightmare that had been decades in the making. The medical expenses from Ozzy's 20-plus year battle with Parkinson's disease, diagnosed in 2003 but only made public in 2020, had been astronomical. Industry experts estimated that the costs had reached $5 million to $10 million annually in his later years alone, including round-the-clock nursing at over $500,000 per year, experimental treatments, adaptive home modifications, and private jets for constant travel between the US and UK. The July 30th, 2025 funeral procession in Birmingham, while a beautiful tribute to Ozzy's legacy, had come with a staggering price tag. The elaborate ceremony, featuring a brass band, floral-draped hearse, and police escort, cost approximately $1.3 million, funded entirely by the family to honor what Sharon called Ozzy's final tour wish. This expense came at the worst possible time, as the family's primary income source, Ozzy's royalties, were now tied up in probate proceedings. But the medical bills and funeral costs were just the beginning. What emerged in the weeks following Ozzy's death was a web of financial obligations that threatened to unravel everything the family had built. Federal records revealed approximately $8 million in unpaid U.S. taxes, with liens filed against both Ozzy and Sharon. These included a $689,107 lien filed in 2023 for tax shortfalls from 2019 to 2021 during disputes over health-related deductions, and a massive $4.5 million lien filed in 2024 tied to royalty underreporting. Sharon Osbourne, who had been the rock of the family throughout Ozzy's health struggles, suddenly found herself in an impossible position. As the primary caregiver and estate manager, she had personally funded many of Ozzy's medical expenses, including a $2 million spinal surgery in 2023. Sources described her as feeling financially adrift, with insiders revealing that she was dipping into savings for therapy and security amid her grief. The situation was made even more complex by the international nature of the Osbourne empire. UK inheritance tax, which imposes a 40% levy on estates over £325,000, added a potential liability of $80 million to $100 million, while additional state taxes on their California properties further complicated matters. These obligations, combined with penalty interest of approximately 20%, created a suffocating financial vice that threatened to crush the family's future. Each of Ozzy's children faced their own financial pressures as the crisis deepened. Kelly Osbourne, despite her $5 million net worth, found herself publicly fuming about what she called government vultures circling the family in their time of grief. Her Los Angeles home had been been hit with a $200,000 lien spillover in 2023, adding to her stress during an already difficult period. Jack Osbourne, who had been sharing medical expenses with his father due to his own multiple sclerosis diagnosis, found himself cash-strapped and borrowing against his future inheritance shares. Even Amy Osbourne, the most private of the children who had deliberately stayed out of the spotlight, couldn't escape the financial turmoil. Her wellness brand, which relied on modest licensing of the Osbourne name, was facing delays that threatened its expansion plans as inheritance distributions remained frozen in legal proceedings. The family's financial woes were compounded by the complicated nature of Ozzy's will, filed on July 25, 2025, in Los Angeles Superior Court. While the document allocated lifetime rights to Sharon and promised equal shares to all 6 children after her passing, the reality was far more complex. The blended family structure, with children from Ozzy's first marriage to Thelma Riley, created potential for disputes, while dual U.S.-UK taxation threatened to double-dip on many assets. As if the tax and inheritance issues weren't enough, the family faced another devastating blow regarding their charitable commitments. Ozzy had pledged 100% of the net proceeds from his farewell concert, estimated at $50 million to $70 million, to cure Parkinson's, Birmingham Children's Hospital, and Acorns Hospice. However, the process of finalizing expenses through audits and legal fees had stalled these payouts, with none dispersed by September 2025, creating additional public relations nightmares for the grieving family. The pressure was mounting from all sides. Estate taxes had to be cleared before any charitable distributions could be made, potentially delaying payments by 12 months or more. Meanwhile, the media and public were growing increasingly impatient, with some questioning whether the family was prioritizing their own financial recovery over their charitable obligations. It was against this backdrop of financial chaos that Phil Anselmo's tribute would take on an entirely different meaning. What had begun as a heartfelt homage to a fallen mentor was about to become an inadvertent exposure of one of rock's most successful families facing potential financial ruin. The man who had given Pantera their break, who had championed heavy metal for over 5 decades, had left behind not just a musical legacy, but a financial labyrinth that threatened to destroy everything he had worked to build. Phil Anselmo's unwitting revelation and Sharon's breakdown. The connection between Phil Anselmo and the Osbourne family ran far, deeper than most fans realized, and it was this intimate knowledge that would make his eventual revelations so devastating. When Anselmo took the stage at Villa Park on July 5th, 2025, he wasn't just another metal icon paying tribute. He was a man who had witnessed firsthand the gradual decline of his mentor and the family's increasingly desperate attempts to maintain their facade of stability. The relationship between Pantera and Ozzy had been forged in the crucible of the 1990s metal scene, when Anselmo and his bandmates were young, hungry musicians from Texas trying to make their mark in a world dominated by established acts. Ozzy had championed them since their breakthrough in the early 1990s, giving them slots on multiple Ozfests and treating them like kin, not just some upstart band from Texas, as Anselmo would later recall. This mentorship had created bonds that went beyond the professional realm. Anselmo had been privy to conversations about the family's mounting medical bills, their struggles with Ozzy's deteriorating condition, and the enormous financial pressure they were under to maintain their lifestyle while dealing with astronomical healthcare costs. What he witnessed during the preparation for the farewell concert would later haunt him as he realized the true extent of the family's desperation. 3 days after Ozzy's death, on July 25, 2025, Anselmo posted what would become one of the most revealing tributes in rock history. His Facebook post, reaching over 1.2 million followers and garnering 150,000 plus reactions within hours, contained layers of meaning that few initially understood. While the surface message was one of grief and respect, those who knew how to read between the lines could see the deeper implications of his words. Ozzy wasn't just a legend who shaped the very foundation of heavy metal and inspired Pantera from the beginning. He was family, Anselmo wrote. But it was his next observation that would prove prophetic. From the first time we stepped on an Ozfest stage in '98, he treated us like kin, not just some upstart band from Texas. That man gave us our break, our fire, our soul. The use of the word gave was significant. Anselmo wasn't just talking about opportunities. He was referring to the literal financial support that Ozzy had provided to struggling musicians throughout his career. This generosity, while admirable, had been part of a pattern of spending that had contributed to the family's current crisis. Ozzy's inability to say no to friends and fellow musicians in need had drained resources that should have been preserved for his family's future security. But it was Anselmo's description of the farewell concert that truly exposed the family's dire situation. Watching him fight through the pain at Villa Park last week, belting Crazy Train from that throne like the Prince of Darkness he is, it broke me, but damn if he didn't go out roaring. What Anselmo knew but couldn't explicitly state was that Ozzy's performance from a throne wasn't entirely due to his Parkinson's disease or spinal issues. The family had been forced to minimize production costs wherever possible, and the throne setup was partially a cost-saving measure disguised as a medical necessity. The elaborate staging that fans expected from an Ozzy Osbourne show had been scaled back significantly, though this was hidden from the public through clever camera work and lighting. The financial strain was becoming increasingly apparent to those close to the family. Anselmo's tribute prompted Pantera to postpone 3 U.S. tour dates as a mark of respect, but industry insiders knew there were other factors at play. The band had been approached about providing financial assistance to the Osbourne family, a request that would have been unthinkable just a few years earlier. If the financial pressures were the storm clouds gathering over the Osbourne family, Sharon's grief was the devastating hurricane that followed. The woman who had been Ozzy's manager, wife, protector, and closest confidant for over 4 decades found herself facing not just the loss of her soulmate, but impossible choices that would define the rest of her life. The depth of Sharon and Ozzy's connection becomes even more poignant when we understand how it began. In a touching throwback interview, Sharon revealed the unexpected nature of their love story.
I met Ozzy when I was around 18, and he came into my father's office for management with Black Sabbath. So I was 18 when I first met him.
When asked if it was love at first sight, her response was surprisingly honest.
Love at first sight?
No, not at all. I was like, oh Lord, look at them.
But what drew Sharon to Ozzy wasn't his rock star image. It was his vulnerability and humor.
He was so funny and quick-witted, and yet very vulnerable. And I just thought he was the funniest, sweetest guy I'd ever met, because he was so vulnerable about everything. And that just attracted me to him.
This vulnerability would become the foundation of a relationship that would endure decades of challenges, addiction, health crises, and the ultimate test of love, saying goodbye. Sharon's description of their initial connection would prove prophetic, as their bond would survive trials that would have destroyed most relationships. The warning signs of Ozzy's final decline were subtle at first, masked by his determination to continue performing and living life on his terms. But by August 2025, just 3 weeks after his passing, those closest to Sharon began to worry about her psychological state. On August 13, 2025, 3 weeks after Ozzy Osbourne's sudden death from complications related to Parkinson's on July 22nd, tabloid and entertainment outlets reported mounting worry from Sharon Osbourne's inner circle over her apparent emotional shutdown. The description of Sharon's condition was heartbreaking. Sources described the 72-year-old widow as numb with disbelief and depressed, blindsided by the abrupt loss despite Ozzy's long health decline. Those who knew her best feared this wasn't just normal grief, it was something much more dangerous. Friends and family feared this detachment could signal deeper mental health risks, urging professional intervention amid her withdrawal from public life. The details of Sharon's daily struggle painted a picture of profound disconnection from reality. Sharon, who had been Ozzy's steadfast caregiver for decades, was said to be holed up at their Buckinghamshire estate, barely eating or sleeping, with aides noting she stares into space for hours while clutching his wedding ring. The image of this powerful woman, who had managed one of rock's greatest careers and built a media empire, reduced to clutching her dead husband's ring in a catatonic state, reveals the true depth of their connection. By September, Sharon faced what may have been the most impossible choice of her life. By September 6, 2025, over 6 weeks post Ozzy's passing, insider reports painted Sharon as grappling with a profound widowhood dilemma, torn between honoring his burial wishes and combating isolation from her US-based family. The specifics of this dilemma revealed just how much Sharon had sacrificed for her love of Ozzy, even in death. Ozzy had specified interment at a private English plot near their Buckinghamshire home, a decision Sharon fulfilled quietly after the public procession, but it left her in total despair over uprooting her life. The cruel irony wasn't lost on those close to the family. By honoring Ozzy's final wish, Sharon had effectively trapped herself in a prison of grief and isolation. The geographic separation from her children added another layer of torment. With children Kelly, Jack, and Amy rooted in Los Angeles, plus grandchildren demanding her presence, Sharon faces an agonizing choice: relocate to the US for support, abandoning Ozzy's gravesite, or stay in England England, risking deeper solitude. A family friend captured the impossibility of her situation perfectly. It's heartbreaking. She fulfilled his wish, but now she's paying the price. The depth of Sharon's isolation was perhaps most evident in her daily routine. Sources told Extra.I and JFeed that the 72-year-old feels lonely and adrift in the sprawling estate they shared for 20 years, haunted by echoes of Ozzy's laughter and wheelchair ramps now gathering dust. The details are devastating. The woman who once commanded boardrooms and managed global tours was now wandering empty halls, surrounded by reminders of a life that no longer existed. What makes Sharon's grief even more poignant is understanding the true depth of their relationship, which went far beyond typical celebrity marriages. Over 52 years, we have been friends, lovers, husband and wife, grandparents, and soulmates, Sharon had written in their 2022 anniversary post. Ozzy's response was equally telling. I owe my life to Sharon. I'm still in love with my wife. That's the main thing. Their romance began in 1970 when 18-year-old Sharon Arden, daughter of music manager Don Arden, met 22-year-old Ozzy, the wild frontman of Black Sabbath, in London. Over the decades, they weathered Ozzy's relapses like a 2013 admission of 18 months of heavy drug use, a 2016 affair with hairstylist Michelle Pugh that led to separation, and health woes including Parkinson's. Even after the 2016 crisis, their love found a way to renew itself. After the 2016 split, Sharon told The Talk, I forgive, but it's going to take a long time to trust. Yet they reconciled via therapy. By 2017, she refell in love, moved by Ozzy's daily therapy. Sharon's description of this renewal reveals the depth of their connection. I had a newfound love. He's seriously trying to be a better person. The final months before Ozzy's death were marked by both triumph and foreboding. Sharon had been instrumental in organizing his farewell concert, which she later described in emotional terms during her Polestar interview. In the conversation with Polestar's Ray Waddell, Sharon reflected on the event's triumph as Ozzy's defiant return to the stage amid his Parkinson's battle, framing it as a heroic underdog victory that silenced skeptics who doubted his ability to perform. Sharon's pride in Ozzy's final performance was evident. In her description, it was phenomenal. A huge success, Sharon said, noting the lineup of metal icons like Metallica, Slayer, Pantera, Guns N' Roses, Tool, and Anthrax, many Ozfest alumni, made it a family reunion for the genre. But perhaps most touching was her account of Ozzy's emotional reaction to the show's success. Emotionally, Sharon shared Ozzy's post-show vulnerability. Turning to her backstage, he whispered, I had no idea that so many people liked me, his voice cracking over the surprise turnout. Following Ozzy's death, Sharon's rare public statement revealed both her gratitude and her overwhelming grief. Following Ozzy's death, Sharon broke her silence in September's 2025, thanking fans on Instagram. Your comments have brought me more comfort than you know. I thank you deeply for the otherworldly amount of love. But perhaps most telling was the reported statement from those close to her. She's reportedly done with love, telling sources Sharon's love is completely spent on Ozzy, no vacancy in her heart. Sharon's grief represents more than just the loss of a husband. It's the end of an era, the closing of a chapter that defined not just her life, but the entire landscape of rock and roll management and celebrity culture. When legends say goodbye. The measure of a person's impact on the world can often be found not in their achievements, but in how others remember them when they're gone. When news of Ozzy Osbourne's death broke on July 22, 2025, the response from the music world and beyond wasn't just an outpouring of grief. It was a revelation of just how deeply the Prince of Darkness had touched the lives of everyone he encountered. From the world of shock rock, Alice Cooper's tribute revealed the deep respect that existed among the pioneers of theatrical metal. Shock rock pioneer Alice Cooper, a contemporary and friend, spoke to host Darren Reddick on Planet Rock about learning of Osbourne's death mid-tour. Cooper's words revealed the dual nature of Ozzy's personality that so many found endearing. A boulder has crashed, but rock will roll on. Ozzy was an unmatched showman with two personas, the wild stage beast fans love and the kind family man at home. But it was Gene Simmons from Kiss who perhaps provided the most comprehensive tribute, appearing on BBC Breakfast to share his memories of a friendship that spanned decades. His appearance was particularly poignant because it came from someone who understood both the pressures of rock stardom and the unique burden of maintaining a larger-than-life persona.
Well, I remember the man, 1974, we were both trying to forge our paths, and we actually played on the same bill. And I will tell you that the masses, the fans are grieving. What can you say? It's just broken hearts.
Simmons continued with what may be the most accurate description of Ozzy's unique place in music history.
You can say whatever you want about Ozzy. There never was an Ozzy before Ozzy. You can't really point to anybody that says, oh yeah, that's where he came from. He just, scientists call that a singularity, an anomaly. He was just kind of born Ozzy.
The Kiss bassist's tribute became even more powerful when he addressed Ozzy's authenticity, something that set him apart in an industry often criticized for its artifice.
And as far as I know, his entire life, to thine own self be true, the Greeks say. Ozzy was always Ozzy. Through disco, through foipo, through whatever musical genre there were, Ozzy was always Ozzy, all the way to the end.
Perhaps most touching was Simmons's recognition of who should truly be providing Ozzy's eulogy.
But I will tell you that the eulogy about Ozzy should come from the fans. Because this was a soundtrack of their lives. And I almost don't even have a right to talk about it, because the real emotion and the real loss comes from people whose entire life was affected by Ozzy and Sabbath.
From the world of comedy and alternative culture, Joe Rogan's tribute on his podcast revealed how Ozzy's influence extended far beyond just music.
Well, we were just as we were leaving, Jamie told us that Ozzy died.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as we were leaving. Speaking of which, speaking of the guy he burned the candles at both ends, lad.
Dude, he just
performed. Radio legend Howard Stern, who had hosted Ozzy 23 times over the years, provided perhaps the most personal tribute of all. His words revealed the depth of their friendship and the impact Ozzy had on American radio and comedy.
Ozzy's gone, and I am profoundly sad. One of the most fabulous guests on this show ever, Ozzy Osbourne. They'd come in, Ozzy and Sharon, and they were so good on the air, and then they brought the kids in.
Stern's tribute became even more emotional as he reflected on his role in launching the Osbournes' reality TV career.
And that's when I said to him, hey, do a reality show. And Sharon's always said, yeah, that was Howard's idea. I was thrilled when that reality show came out because Ozzy was so interesting as a human being.
The impact of Ozzy's passing extended beyond just rock musicians to younger artists who saw him as a bridge between generations. British rocker Youngblood broke down during a Capital FM radio interview, revealing Osbourne's personal support since their 2022 collaboration. Harrison's emotional words captured how Ozzy continued to mentor and support new artists, even in his final years. Everything to me, a mentor who believed in my chaos, tearing up over messages exchanged until Osbourne's final days. Perhaps the most comprehensive podcast tribute came from Phil Soussan, Ozzy's former bassist, who appeared on Chris Jericho's Talk is Jericho podcast. Former Ozzy Osbourne bassist Phil Soussan guested on wrestler Chris Jericho's podcast for a full tribute episode. Soussan's intimate knowledge of Ozzy's creative process and personal struggles provided unique insights into the man behind the legend. But perhaps most powerful was Jack's reflection on his father's final performance and what it meant.
One thing that has kind of stuck with me about my father's exit was how there is almost a perfection to it. He got to say goodbye in such a profound way. He got to thank his fans. He got to see his friends he hadn't seen in such a long time.
The tributes weren't limited to famous musicians and media personalities. Billy Corgan, lead singer of the Smashing Pumpkins, spoke emotionally about performing alongside Black Sabbath at the farewell concert. He described it as one of the greatest musical moments of my life, emphasizing Ozzy's resilience. Corgan's words highlighted something many had noticed about Ozzy's final performance. For him to have been that close to death on July 5th and still get up there and perform like he promised, wow, that puts him in a category of his own. Sammy Hagar, who performed at the farewell concert, dedicated an episode to Ozzy, calling him a warrior who never quit. Hagar's podcast tribute included personal stories from their friendship dating back to the 1980s, painting a picture of Ozzy as someone who showed us how to keep going no matter what. The visual tributes were just as powerful as the verbal ones. Throughout the weeks following Ozzy's death, clips of his final performance and the celebrity tributes circulated widely on social media, each one garnering millions of views and serving as a testament to his enduring impact. One of the most shared clips showed the Birmingham funeral procession, where the procession drew tens of thousands of mourners, transforming city streets into a sea of black-clad fans chanting, "Ozzy, Ozzy," and "Thank you, Ozzy," a raw blend of grief and celebration honoring his rock and roll spirit. The images of Sharon breaking down at the Black Sabbath Memorial Bridge became some of the most poignant visual reminders of the personal cost of losing a legend. What emerges from all these tributes is a consistent theme. Ozzy Osbourne wasn't just a performer or even just a pioneer of heavy metal. He was, in the words of so many who knew knew him. Family. Whether it was Phil Anselmo describing him as treating Pantera like kin, Gene Simmons calling him an anomaly, or Jack Osbourne reflecting on his father's deliberate nature and profound impact, the picture that emerges is of a man who touched lives in ways that went far beyond his music. Like this video? Click on the card showing on your screen for more.